Hi, welcome to the Perception Podcast, where hopefully today we're going to change your perception on things that you thought you already knew. Were you a part of the process of hiring Adam when he was 12?
I might. Yes. In January, I went to Thailand, and I found myself just putting the camera down.
And people from different states will take time to leave their state and go to a different state.
IDES talks a lot about is disaster creates opportunity for evangelism.
It kind of refines their faith and draws them closer to God.
How would you say that trip impacted you spiritually?
Spiritually, well, I was baptized.
I think it was Mr. Rogers who said, when you see a disaster, always look for the people who are running to help, because there's a lot of people running to help.
Hi, welcome to the Perception Podcast, where hopefully today we're going to change your perception on things that you thought you already knew. I'm Thomas Casey Zellers, and joining me today are B.G. Moore and Adam Garner from the IDES organization, the International Disaster Emergency Services. Yeah?
Not plural.
Not
No, just service.
Service.
All right.
Yep. People at IDES will make fun of you forever.
Oh, they already do. They
That's
already
right.
do.
That's right.
No, I want to know what was really the start of IDES. How did that begin, and how you guys kind of came into the picture, really. So, yeah.
Well, I will take this one.
He's been at IDES longer than I have.
Okay.
Yes, I have been with IDES for 6 years now,
Okay.
since 2018, and basically IDES started, I believe it was in 1973. So we've been an organization for 51 years now. There was a man named Milton Bates who lived in the middle of nowhere, Indiana. Somewhere north of Indianapolis. I believe it was Kempton, Indiana.
Okay.
So probably not far from here. Basically, he was watching the news one night, and there was a typhoon, I believe, in Bangladesh. And you got to remember, this is the 70s. And so I don't know what the news reports were exactly with this flood.
Probably Walter Cronkite.
Probably. But basically, he was seeing all this destruction on TV, and he was like, looking at his wife and his family. He was like, man, like, where are like the Christians in times of crisis like this? Bangladesh, it's one of the poorest countries in the world, and he was basically like, what are the Christians doing to help people in time of suffering like this? Yeah. And so he got this idea of, we really need an organization in the Christian churches of Christ, that can raise money to help people in times of crisis, and not just give people physical need, but also meet their spiritual needs as well through Christ. Yeah. So, because one thing that IDES talks a lot about is disaster creates opportunity for evangelism, so that you can meet people at their most, vulnerable moments, and they just feel like they've lost everything, and that really opens a door for their hearts, for believers to come in there and help them and be like, look, I don't want to just help you physically.
I want to help you
spiritually as well, because that's really where a lot of brokenness is for people. So, it's a great organization. Proud to work there. Yeah. And that's how it started with Milton Bates, this guy who, he was basically a nobody, just a Joe Schmo from Indiana like us. And, he was like, I think it was like a Moses, or somebody who felt like unqualified. And it's just like, he basically, it wasn't just Milton Bates that did this. It was really him working with other people like Richard Sprague, who is more of like, I don't know if you call him the brains of the operation, but he basically...
He was the Wozniak to the Steve
Yes,
Jobs. Okay.
Yes, it was a team effort. Yeah, he was the Woz. So basically, so it's really like Milton had this amazing idea, and he's like, I can't do this myself.
Yeah.
And so I believe it was this conference called the North American Christian Convention. I might be butchering that. It doesn't exist anymore. But in 1973, I believe that's when like the first board of directors for IDES, and the IDES organization was
Actually,
created.
became a thing. Yeah.
Became a thing. So, and that all started at the kitchen table of Milton Bates in Kempton, Indiana.
Yeah.
And then I believe they moved into a building in Kempton. And then in about 2013, 2014, they felt really limited in their space about what they could do, because they're in just, rink-a-dink, middle of nowhere, Indiana.
Yeah.
And Rick Jett, who is the son-in-law of Milton Bates, Rick Jett married Nancy, who is Milton's daughter.
Okay.
And they were basically, the IDES organization is like, we need to, if we want IDES to grow and expand to other countries and expand even more, to have greater impact, we need to move to a major metropolitan area.
We got to really kind of go to where the people are.
Yes,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah.
And volunteering, which I know we'll talk about, was a big thing with that, because it's like, it's hard to get volunteers to drive all the way to Kempton, right?
Yeah.
So where are you going to go? You're going to go to where there's more people. And so they had looked in the Indianapolis area. I believe they looked in Greenwood. They looked all over the city. Eventually they settled right off of 32 in Noblesville. So a very busy
That's
area.
the office that I came in.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that is the office where you were. And it was like a total mess from what I heard. I wasn't there for it. The building itself, I should say.
Just
they
a
had
dumpster fire going on.
Yeah.
Where did I just get a job?
Yes, yes. But I think the building was perfect for what they wanted to do. They just had to like clean a lot of like stuff out of there. So I think they had raccoons living in like the
And the
ceilings.
ceilings, they did.
It was just like
Rocket?
kind of a mess. It might be, yeah, maybe. But yeah. So once they cleaned that up, they were just looking at this space, and they were like, this is so huge. I don't know how we're ever going to utilize all of this space.
Yeah.
And now here we are almost in 2025.
Yeah.
And, about 10, 11 years later, and now we have to do a big building expansion.
Wow.
Because now we're busting at the seam. Because our hunger program and our U.S. disaster program are growing so big, and they share the same warehouse. So now what originally was like, what are we going to do with all this space? We're never going to use this. It's now too small.
Wow.
So it just shows how God can grow
Oh, yeah.
stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's really nothing that IDES lasting 51 years is not about people and what they did. It's really about what God did through Milton and Richard and these original board members, and they just carry on with Rick and now David Stein, just everybody.
Is Milton still with us?
He is not.
So he never actually got to see all this kind of...
Yeah, he never got
Wow.
to see what it is now. But he was with IDES for many years, through those early years. And, it just shows you this one ordinary man stepping out in faith, hearing that call from the Lord, stepping out in faith and obeying the Lord. And now look at it. It's 51 years.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
it's just like millions of dollars raised. And we're pretty small. We're not like the Red Cross or anything, but because of the obedience from our supporters, who give to IDES, and that's globally too, like our nationwide givers and donors. They've raised millions for like hunger and U.S. disaster. So it's been amazing.
Wow.
So-
And where do you come into this? Were you a part of the process of hiring Adam when he was 12?
I might, yes, child labor.
That's where we got our start. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yes.
No, I do communications at IDES, and I've only been there since January, so not even a year. But I got to know IDES through BG because I helped with filming projects. And so I think it was 2020. It was like around COVID when I started volunteering with IDES and helping with film stuff. So I've gotten to know the mission of IDES, as well as the staff and just the whole atmosphere over the past 5 years. And it's been incredible to see. I always say this to people that I meet, it's so easy to spot people in their faith if they're authentic or if they're cheesy. And you can kind of spot it from a mile away when you get to know people. And IDES people are definitely very authentic and down to earth and just incredible people. And I found that to be true before I started working there. And now that I get to see more behind the scenes stuff and pull back the curtain, it's still the same. I mean, just really people who care, compassionate, loving people who want to do what they can to help those in need.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So whenever you work in communications, what are you mostly working on? I've seen on the IDES Instagram that you do a lot of social media work as well, or is that?
Yeah. Social media is the bread and butter of what I do for my job.
Okay.
I do some print publications and emails and things like that. But in today's day and age, a lot of times it's getting the word out to what we're doing, especially during disasters. And so we utilize mostly Facebook because a lot of our donors are of the older generation, and so they're on Facebook more than Instagram. But trying to create a balance of educating our donors and our audience, who hopefully if they aren't donors, maybe are just interested in what we're doing, of our impact, but also I want them to see us as not just an organization, but the people behind the organization. Because regardless of whatever you do, people connect with people. And sure, people connect with the mission, and that's important, but I am a firm believer in that as relational people, you have to connect with the person behind what's going on. And so we try to have some lighthearted videos that we add on social media, like, hey, staff fun facts, or things like that, along with our stories that we do. I think it's important, because dealing with disasters is not always happy-go-lucky. A lot of times it's very sad and somewhat depressing what these people go through. And so trying to have a little bit of a balance of the good that's going on as well, to kind of have a good balance with it.
Right.
And so it's always a challenge, but...
Well, BG, I know that you work a lot with filmmaking and cinematography outside of IDES.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
And is that also what you do with IDES, I'm guessing? Okay.
Yes.
So whenever you work in the film and photography of everything, like what would you say like makes that, I guess, gratifying and also kind of challenging at the same time, really? Like where does that put you spiritually whenever you're in those environments and you see all that sort of stuff? Right.
It's, in the interview process with IDES, it's always interesting because they wanted to emphasize the morality of, the video stuff. Like, maybe morality is not the right word. It's, you have to be very careful with what you take pictures of.
Using your discretion.
Yeah, discretion.
Yeah. It's not mission tourism.
Right, exactly. Right. But also, you're taking pictures of people in very vulnerable moments, potentially, and you just never know what you're going to see, whether you're going to a foreign country or a U.S. disaster site. Like, a lot of these people have lost everything, and a lot of them don't want a camera in their face. And I totally get that. I absolutely get that, and I sympathize with that for sure. So for me, the big thing, because essentially my job is to tell the story of IDES and how God is using his people to work through IDES. Because media, as you know, is so important today, because how do people give today? A lot of them on their phones, right? And then we're so into our phones and technology, so people need to see, the visuals, the video, the photo of the need, so then that way they can give.
Is there a challenge?
Oh yeah.
Because social media has really kind of taken our attention span, I think, as a society, from like 12 seconds to like not even half a second.
Right.
So is there that challenge that you have to present to people within that crucial snap of a finger?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's always the biggest challenge. And I know he does a lot with videos on social media. He probably is an even bigger challenge because a lot of my stuff goes on YouTube that I do. He's got to do it when he does the reels. You know, that's how you really, because what are people doing? They're doing this constantly. So I think he's got a bigger challenge with the reels and whatnot to visually stimulate people and keep them listening. But also when we have links to giving, getting people to click that donation link. So, and I'll just say this real quick. I'll get back on topic with your original question, but when people give the IDES, 100% of that donation goes right to the cause or the need. Nothing comes out for operations.
So it's 100%.
100%. So, and we are a 501c3, right? I always get those numbers mixed up.
There's some code law
yes,
thing that it is,
yes. So people can be assured that their donation is going to the right thing.
Yeah. How many organizations do you have set up for people to donate to, like all these different?
Oh, we just did a new giving portal, and you can do a drop down. We have, I don't know, 20 funds that you can give to within IDES.
Wow.
And some of it is specific depending. So like we had like Hurricane Milton and Hurricane Helene, which just hit this fall. So we have funds for that, and then we have funds for hunger and for other things that were kind of going on.
Because I remember it was actually, I actually almost laughed whenever I visited the office back in July. I wanted to donate to a fund for Ukraine.
Yeah.
And whenever she was like, okay, which one?
Yeah.
I was like, there's options.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that's
For sure.
That's absolutely incredible that you guys actually have all these different options available for people too. So
absolutely. And I'll give you a quick story about your original question. You had asked about taking the pictures and the video because it is my job to tell the story of IDES and make sure that we are communicating to the donors what their money is going to. And it's also a way when we go visit sites of projects that we've done in the past to thank people like, hey, thank you for your donations. It went to this well, or it went to this farm, or it went to providing goats for these people or chickens, like or this newly rebuilt house because of the donation you have done. So it's great to capture that, but then like I said, you also capture people who are in vulnerable moments. And so there are times where I will be taking pictures of people, but then in January I went to Thailand and I found myself just putting the camera down because it was we were walking through this trash dump where these immigrants live from Myanmar, and it's the Mesot trash dump. These people have escaped Myanmar, which is war-torn right now. I don't know if you're familiar with what's going on in Myanmar,
and I think that's probably because the West doesn't report on it.
Yeah, we don't report on it very well.
No.
But essentially, the government created a military coup, and I hope I'm not butchering the accuracy of this. But they are going into villages and killing people and killing their own people. So a lot of these refugees from Myanmar have escaped into Thailand to seek refuge. And Mesot, which is, I believe it's close to the border between Thailand and Myanmar, and they've created this village that is right next to a trash dump, which I believe they used to go in there and get things and
dig through the trash to survive.
Yeah, basically. So there's this village there, and in Mesot, and we got to walk through there because we've worked with these refugees and helped them. So it was one of the most humbling, sobering moments of my life because, I have seen poverty, but I've never seen poverty like that.
level,
And it was unbelievable. And basically we're walking through just this area and it smells terrible. And you see these little kids running around in this filth, people having this well with this water that's probably contaminated. And it was just like, my goodness, like, we have to do more to help these people. Like, they just cannot live like this.
Yeah.
So I just remember this lady sitting next to this well, and like, picture-wise, it would have been an amazing picture to have.
Would have been like a powerful.
Picture to like take her. It would have been like a National Geographic something.
Well, okay.
Something.
Well, let's. You're good.
Right. Or I wouldn't, not so much my photo abilities of National Geographic, but it was more of like, this is something you would see in National Geographic. And it was just like, I can't take a picture of this lady. I just can't do it. So I just, smiled and hoping, she just had like this awful look, like she just looked depressed. And it was just like a moment of, I'm not going to take a picture of this, because even if it would be a good, like, hey, help IDES out so that we can help refugees, it was more of like, you know what, I'm going to honor this woman's dignity, and I'm just not going to stick a camera in her face.
Yeah.
So
Do you find that to be a struggle anytime that you do go on those missions trips to disassociate yourself from the camera at all, and kind of like take a moment to just kind of soak it in and not just see what's behind the lens, but just actually like see it for yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because that's even like, let's say when you're taking vacation, right? And you see like the beautiful mountains.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I'm spending so much time just shooting that I'm not just taking it in with my own eyes. So similar with IDES work, it's hard because it's like, dang, like this is my job. I need to be taking pictures of stuff so that we can raise money. And for me, it's not just about raising money. It's about bringing awareness to that, of the need that exists in the world. So there are times where, yes, I will put the camera down for IDES and just soak it all in, because it's just like, like he's about to experience this when he goes to Thailand here in a few months. And it's just like, you really just need to soak it in. And it's our country is a great country. We have many faults, but at the end of the day, we have so much compared to people who have been born into some really unfortunate situations. And I believe that as Christians, we are called as a church to go, that verse, that Great Commission, go to the ends of the earth. And I do acknowledge we have a credible need in our own communities here, but it's also important to go out into the far reaches of the world and show people the love of Christ, because if we don't do it, then who's going to do it? Because a lot of these people, Thailand, Asia, lots of Buddhism and, oh my goodness, I'm butchering. Other religions.
Buddhism and other religions.
Yes, I'm having a
just
big
leave it
brain
at
fart
that.
here. I'm sorry. Hinduism, that's the one I was looking for. Just so much influence. You go in Thailand, Buddhism is so huge over there. You see the big statues. And I just feel like people need so much more hope than in these other religions. Because Christ is really the only one who can, bring these people out of spiritual bondage. So it was just these trips are great reminders of, man, I'm so glad to live in America, first and foremost. As much as we complain and as much division as there is here in our country, it's just like, wow, like people would kill to be here as well. So it's just, it just shows that we have so many resources in our country, and we just waste so much. Isn't there a statistic about we waste about a third of our food is thrown in the trash? And
Something like that. I don't know the exact number, but I think you're in that ballpark.
And it's just like, oh my goodness, like that's a crazy stat. So because you just see these people in their situations, and it's like, man, it's sad. So
Whenever you, Adam, I guess kind of drew you to wanting to do some volunteer work as well on the side of IDES, along the side of what you're already doing with IDES, and is there any place that really kind of spoke to you spiritually and kind of sobered you up a little bit? Yes.
Yeah, when I first started volunteering with IDES, it was mostly because of this guy. Because we were doing a VBS at the time,
I
and
pressured him.
he did. Yeah.
You're not supposed to give into the peer pressure, man.
And yeah, I really enjoyed the mission, learning it through the VBS, because I kind of was immersed by fire, so to speak. I just learned, as we went. That's a good analogy. But I think one thing that I've learned for myself while I've been on staff with IDES that I've really, I guess, been drawn to and I've just really loved, and that I've seen time and time again, is something that you can't fake. And that is, so many people trust IDES, and people from different states will take time to leave their state and go to a different state who has a disaster. And I'll talk with them, and I'll be like, have you guys volunteered with IDES in past years? Oh yeah, we've traveled to this for this hurricane and this tornado. And I'm like, why have you kind of been so devoted? I was like, because we've seen firsthand the money come in and go straight to a homeowner that just lost their roof or lost their house. And it's not just a one-off that we meet volunteers like that. It is almost all our volunteers who have served with us for 10, 15 plus years. And that's just something you can't fake. And that's really
There's an actual servant heart there in those people.
Yes, there's no pride, there's no sense of self, gratification. It's all about, we love God, but in order to love God, we have to love people, right? Because that's not separated in Scripture. Those are married together. And so how can we go out and love our neighbors, whether it be here in the States or around the world? So it's been really, really gratifying for me to see that. It's been cool and has inspired me.
Yeah. What was a sobering moment for you that really, I guess, kind of brought humanity and spirituality a little closer to your heart?
That's a good question. Unlike BG, I haven't been to as much disaster sites, but probably the biggest or the most disaster I've seen, if that sentence makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense. But back in May, there was I think it was a F4 tornado hit this small town of Barnesdale, Oklahoma.
I think it was an F4.
I think it was an F4.
I follow storm chasers a lot.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I think it was an F4.
And the town, I could be wrong, I think it's like 2,000 or less people. Like, it's not very big. And there was one neighborhood that was by the river, and it was just basically completely wiped out.
Wow.
And so I have seen tornado damage a little bit, but I've never seen completely just stuff is gone. And so then you start to think of, like, were people home when this happened? Because hopefully they had enough time before it hit to take shelter. And one thing that was just really sobering was I was taking pictures of our volunteers, and our supervisor, who was kind of taking charge of it, came up to me. He said, hey, this is probably unlikely, but I just want to let you know that the city is still looking for somebody. Like, they can't find a guy who used to live in one of these houses, and they don't know where he's at. And basically he was telling me, as you're taking pictures and going around, like, just be aware in case, like, because who knows, we'll stumble across a body or what. And so that was very sobering to think about, and like,
to have in the back of your mind that while I'm doing my job,
right,
somebody is, wow.
Yeah, and thinking about, like, the families, it's one thing to hear about on the news. It's another thing to be there in person and seeing the families for yourself and knowing, like, wow, this is right in front of me.
Yeah, I remember. That was a lot of the volunteer work that I did for IDES recently down in Tennessee. That was incredibly. I can't think of a better adjective, really. It really was just sobering. It really did just put a lot of humility in my own heart, really. In regards to all of it, because the first day that we were down there. We went to this guy's house. His name is John Lipford. And John and I remember that being his name because the road that we were on was called Howard Lipford, and that was his granddad's
Oh, wow.
road, essentially. So, and he lived in a trailer right next to the river. And whenever we got down there, I just remember seeing sand everywhere. That's how much water had gone through the flooding in Tennessee. There was so much water, it was churning up the soil and throwing sand all over the place. So his whole backyard is no longer grass; it's now just sand.
Wow.
And along the banks, like I saw stuff from like shower curtains to socks to just you name it, just every little thing. And I saw gutters for people's homes, and that was, I think, the first moment for me to kind of realize, like, this is 100%, like, this is real. This is very real.
Oh, yeah.
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 I mean, and there was never a doubt in my mind that
Right.
the damage was bad, but whenever
Right.
you're actually on the ground
Yeah.
seeing it, there is that sobering feeling to
Yeah.
you
It
that
is.
kind of overwhelms you.
Yeah.
And John, he came later, and we kind of did a little survey of his yard and what he wanted to have cleaned up and burned and thrown away, which that was kind of hard to hear.
Yeah.
Somebody say, like, yeah, we can throw this away or we can do that. And we gathered together in a prayer, and once we're done praying, I just remember looking up at John and just tears flowing down his face, and just him saying, "This is the first time I have cried since all of this has happened." His story is remarkable. I remember asking him. He was, he always said, like, yeah, I'd always keep like a check on the river if there was like bad storms, because he's
Yeah.
like, floods weren't like
Right.
uncommon.
Right.
But whenever the water was up over the banks, he was just like, okay, well, this is kind of like, I got to keep my eye on it. I think he said about maybe 15, 20 minutes later, looked back outside, and the water was now like almost at the base of his house.
Oh, man.
And was still going.
Man.
So he grabbed his 11-year-old son, Eli, and was just like, we're just going up the hill. Like, and what's crazy and what's awesome about John's story is that he saw his house move maybe about 2 feet, just get lifted up and then move 2 feet forward. He saw cars being picked up and moved. He saw sheds being picked up and moved. And while we were there, and I'll have to show you guys the picture of this because I asked him if it was okay. I mean, we were talking about that discretion earlier.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to make sure it was okay.
Yeah.
And under this little dogwood tree that he had in his front yard was a statue of Jesus while Jesus is praying in the garden. I'm getting a little emotional talking about it right now because it was incredible. Jesus, the statue was completely covered in crap, just covered in mud. And I remember asking John, "Is the statue yours?" I don't know.
Yeah,
Like it
right.
could have come from anywhere
Right.
with the flood. And he said, "Yeah, that statue's mine, and that was the only thing of my property that did not move."
Wow.
And in between Jesus' hands, like right here, there was actually a sprout coming up. And John said that was not there until after the flood.
Wow.
So we got choked up, and I remember looking at John. I actually started laughing because I was like, John,
Right.
I cannot come up
Right.
with a better visual metaphor right now
Right.
than Jesus, covered in crap, went through the storm, did not move, and now there's new life starting in between his hands. Like, you can't make a better visual metaphor.
Right.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
For sure. For sure.
Tennessee was just, it was,
Yeah.
a lot of people there are definitely still hurting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah.
And
I think-
a lot of the damage that we also saw in another area, I mean, you were talking about how homes were just completely just gone.
Yeah.
Where we were on the second day, we were at this lady's house down by the river, and there was a half wall of like cement blocks. And I remember actually it was like lunchtime or something like that, and I just looked at one of the guys next to me and I was like, you know, where the houses all are right here and the mountains there, the river there, like this is actually like pretty beautiful despite all the destruction.
Right.
And a couple hours later was talking to that family, and the daughter came and showed me a video that she had took. And in the video I see the cement brick wall. And I kind of pointed out to her, I was like, is that? Like, because I wanted to, I guess, like visually confirm. And she was like, yeah, because where it was to their yard was like, it was close.
Right.
And on the other side of the wall were a bunch of houses in the video. But in the video, not there anymore.
Wow.
And I went up to the guy I was talking to. I was like, man, like there were houses right here. And here you and I were just a couple hours ago saying how beautiful this all was with no knowledge of like, this is crazy.
Yeah. It shows you the power of water. I think Ed Sano, who's our director of training at IDES, he trains churches and people about how to protect your church from potential active shooter events, or even how to, if a disaster comes into your community, how to prepare for that. You know, because as a church, that can be a great tool for evangelism, like I said, to help your community when, you know, I know a tornado came through here years ago, and it's just like, well, when that happens, our churches in Indianapolis going to come help? Potentially, but it's really the church in that area that people are going to be turning to. So Ed trains these churches, no matter how big or small, to, hey, prepare to respond to a potential disaster, because you never know. It's so unpredictable. But I think one stat that Ed talked about is that what disaster kills more people than any, and it's flooding. Flooding is so dangerous. And, you know.
Yeah, I don't think, and I think it's the blame of popular media like TV and films and whatnot. People don't understand there's a lot of crap in floodwater.
Oh, yeah.
You have oils and chemicals from cars and all sorts of stuff. Like, it's just, you have trash, feces, everything in floodwater.
And you underestimate the current.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, you know, I'm not a great swimmer. And it's just like when you are, you know, in those moments of desperation, and it's just like that current's going. And like you said, with your guy in Tennessee, like the water was one depth, and then a few minutes later, it's right. So it's like, in those situations, you got to act quickly.
Yeah.
So,
I think how John reacted was definitely, I mean, I couldn't think of a better father figure, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Of how he just reacted, of just like, just keeping his eye on it.
Yes.
He could have totally ignored it and just been like, well, I've seen this before.
Right.
You know, but the fact that he was a little bit more cognizant, a little bit more aware of the fact that, you know, it's no doubt that he's alive today because the Holy Spirit spoke to him to be like, go out on your back porch right now. And then whenever he goes out there and sees the water level, and then he's like, okay, I gotta grab my boy, I gotta go. Like, this is bad. So,
Were you going to say something?
I think what I have found, and I'm sure BG has seen this a lot more than I have, but people who have gone through those disasters, a lot of times I'm the one that's blessed by them, even though they have just, we're there to be a blessing to them, right? We did a filming for this couple from a tornado in Tennessee, just south of Nashville, and they were on their way home from Bible study when the tornado hit, and they got detoured. I can't remember why, but they had to take an extra 10 or 20 minutes out of their normal route to get back to their house. And in that time frame is when their tornado hit their house. And most of their roof was gone, glass everywhere. I mean, it was just a mess. And a couple days later, I went to their house and filmed them and talked with them. And it was incredible how the husband and wife were responding to it. They were talking about how, we just have peace that we know only comes from Christ, despite having all of our furniture's out by the road because it got destroyed, and most of their house is just has to be redone. And it was incredible how they didn't view it as necessarily like, oh, it's unfortunate for us, like, woe is us that this happened. It was like, man, God is using us as vessels to reach out to our neighbors and to meet people that we haven't before. And that was really moving to me. Like, man, here you guys are, your house is unlivable. They're living in a trailer, and in the meantime, but yet they were still seeking ways to advance Christ's kingdom with the people that was around him and to love them. And so that was just huge. And I think there's so many people who are out there who they go through tragedy, but it kind of refines their faith and draws them closer to God and others.
We had a very similar situation at John's house. We were working, and then his Aunt Kathy came, and she wanted to buy us lunch, even though we all packed a lunch.
Right.
She came and gave us some McDonald's, which I wasn't going to turn that down.
Yes.
Yes. But she was like, y'all just been helping us so much that we want to. She's like, I just have a servant's heart, and I want to be able to help you too. And she was right next to John, just saying, hey, just remember, God is good. God is good. Like, and was even telling John, like, yeah, your situation's bad, but there are people that have it way worse too.
Yeah.
And I might have met a stronger woman, but I can't remember when. And what I think was most moving for me in that moment was she was just, I guess, just kind of just talking about John's story, just kind of just reiterating it again. And once I saw her her eyes kind of swell up, I asked her, can I give you a hug? Yeah. And as I'm hugging her, she just could not stop saying thank you. Yeah. She even said, like, I don't know what else to say, just thank you. And I wanted to come up with I wanted to say something, I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I just couldn't. And I think that was a moment for me, spiritually, to just kind of understand that they're helping me grow in my faith through this act of humility and this act of being sobered up to their situation. And that's drawing me closer to God. But what's drawing them closer to God is me being there, being that vessel, as you were saying.
Yeah.
And so it was just, to me, like an awesome transfer, I guess, of spiritual energy from person to person.
Yeah. It is beautiful when you get to see that go both ways. And I think I had a pastor that I used to work for, and we would talk about things in the church all the time, and incredible man of God. And I remember he told me one time, and I had similar thoughts. He's like, there are days where I wonder, why did God choose humans to advance his kingdom and his church? Because we do some crappy stuff.
We're terrible people, aren't we?
Yeah.
I mean, we just do some things that's just like, and like I put myself in that situation, right? It's like I've done some stuff I'm not proud of, and I'm like, why in the world does he still use us? And then I see moments of situations like you're talking about, of people just in their most lowest part of life, and yet they're glorifying God and seeking ways to give him praise. And it's in those small moments I'm like, this is why, because you kind of see the Father's love for us through their heart. And that's something that I always need, that daily reminder of that.
I had a buddy actually send me a video not too long ago called The Idol of Struggle. And in the video, this guy's really breaking down how he was doing some missions work and how he was just really moved by the fact that all these people just had it was somewhere international, I can't remember where, but how all these people, like this disaster destroyed everything that they had ever known, ever were. And all these people were smiling and laughing and just being like, hey, God is good. And he said that really conflicted him. And I guess in a way, like, the same thing kind of happened to me too, coming home from Tennessee, is it's really easy for us as Americans, like you were saying, like this is a really blessed country. I don't think it hit me until the day after I got home, where it's the first morning back. I'm making myself a bowl of cereal, and I remember I poured the cereal into the bowl, and then I just like stopped for like maybe a solid 30 seconds. Because I was like just realizing in that moment, I am now eating cereal out of a clean bowl. In my kitchen, clean kitchen,
Right.
in a clean house. Like everything at once just hit me to the point where I was like, I really do take so much for granted. And I think here in America, it's easy for us to have all the things that we have and really kind of take a moment to, and he even says this in the video, of how it's really easy for us to just kind of be like, we're good Christians whenever we're going through a struggling moment, because that's where the real test of faith is. But
Yeah.
how are you being a good Christian outside of struggle?
Right.
You know, and that's why he called it the idol of struggle. How do you actually be a good Christian outside of your struggles and what it is that you're going through? These people lost everything, and yet John was able to crack jokes with them. I mean, before we even got into his house, he stopped in the doorway and turned around to us and went, "Oh, by the way, sorry about the mess." Like,
Yes.
He had a sense of humor about
Yes.
stuff like that. So it's definitely a moment for me where I was just kind of just sitting there like, God, I really hope that what I did down there was impactful. Was actually like, because I remember just being called down there and God just saying, "Hey, I want you to go to Tennessee."
Yeah.
Not knowing why I'm down there the whole time.
Right.
And then whenever
Right.
I get back, just still kind of sitting with, what was the point? Why was I down there?
Right.
And John had actually sent a text to Rich, who was running everything down there. And Rich then conveyed that message to us, and it was just John just really saying that he was really moved and he was really inspired by our faiths, the four of us that were down there.
Yeah.
And he said that I stuck out to him the most because I was the one who was praying with him the most, and I was there who was talking with him, not just about his story of the flood, but also just his family and
Right.
everything.
Right.
And then that was, I guess, like the light bulb moment for me to be like, okay, so yeah, I did fulfill a good purpose down there. I fulfilled something down there, and so it was definitely reassuring
Yes.
being down there. So
Yeah. How would you say that trip impacted you spiritually?
spiritually, well, I was baptized over the
good.
trip. I was
That's
baptized
good.
over the trip because I was baptized when I was 10. But I did it just because like it was the cool thing to do. Everybody else had
Right.
done it.
Right.
But I had always kind of just seen baptism as like this thing of like, well, it's not necessarily a necessity.
Right.
Like I wasn't denying its importance, but I was like, I don't really know if it's like 100%. Like you need
Yeah.
to be baptized. And this really awesome guy, Caleb, I won't say his last name, but Caleb was, he was very influential faith-wise. And I'm glad that he was there.
Awesome.
Because I was kind of telling him about stuff that was just going on through the day, stuff that was going through my mind. Like, man, this is like, I'm still trying to process everything.
Yeah.
And I was kind of telling him just like how, like, for me on my faith, like, there are times in my life where it's like, yeah, and whenever I'm struggling, give all the glory to God. God is still good, even though I'm struggling right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, that flesh kind of comes in. And there are times where I don't think about God first in those
Yeah.
moments.
Oh, yeah.
And I was telling him, like, man, I just wish my faith was just stronger.
Yeah.
So he starts talking to me about baptism. He starts talking to me and showing me verses in Acts where Paul was converted, and Paul's conversion was he confessed, and then they're like, okay, rise up and be baptized. And then he showed me about Paul and the jailer. That's also in Acts as well, and Philip and the eunuch. And just understanding that their baptism came almost, if not immediately, after their confession.
Right.
And so he just looked at me and was just like, today's your day of salvation, dude.
That's cool.
And I just looked back at Caleb. I was like, well, then what are we waiting for? So
That's right.
got baptized. And you know what's crazy? I don't think I told Caleb this, but what was crazy was I told Caleb, hey, I'm going to go get a towel real quick and a change of clothes. I remember as I was going to get my change of clothes, there was a little voice in my head going, you don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. Don't do this. You don't want to do this.
Man.
And I just remember getting back to my room, grabbing my towel, and I just said, Lord, drive the enemy away. That voice was gone immediately.
Yeah.
And I was still kind of like shaking.
Right.
Because I was still like jazzed up of the idea, like, I'm baptism. This is
Yes.
cool.
Yes.
So, but that was definitely, I think, like you were saying, like it was just the big push for me spiritually to just
That's awesome.
really take my faith and just go 1,000 miles with it, you know. So.
Dude, that's awesome.
I love that.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm happy for you. I'm happy for you.
It was kind of funny because the guy was like, "Well, I put hot water in it last night. It's not hot water now."
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So I kind of want to go to primarily just what the show is about. It's changing people's perceptions. So
You're right.
I want to ask the two of you, if you could give the audience, really just anybody listening or watching, like, what do you think, in your personal opinions, is one thing that people think, oh, this is what volunteer work is all about? What would you say? Well, no, it's actually not that. How would you change their perceptions of it, really?
You want me to just tell you, volunteering through IDES,
Yeah,
maybe?
sure.
We had the best volunteers.
We do. I know everybody says that, but we do.
But we actually have the best volunteers.
I'm not gonna.
And they,
Yeah. Oh, you got the shirt on?
oh yes,
Keep the logo. Right?
That's right. That's right. But they are some of the most selfless people you'll ever meet. And at least the volunteers that we get are usually very spiritually based, or have a history of that. And you know what? We also love those volunteers that have no spiritual background, because like you say, I mean, just volunteering and seeing the hands and feet of Jesus' work can really...
The body of
the body.
church,
There
yeah.
you go. So it's amazing to see just the hard work that people do, because like Adam said, you know, these people commit so much. Like, they can be gone weeks, sometimes months. Like, we've had volunteers who are mostly like retired people who will just be stationed at a location for weeks or months.
Really?
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, how selfless is that?
Yeah.
So to help people.
Yeah.
And another cool thing is to see people from other denominations, like the Amish, people coming from Pennsylvania and other Amish communities down to Lake Charles,
Yeah, 'cause
Louisiana.
The Amish are really prevalent in Pennsylvania, aren't they?
Yes, yes. And to see them travel all the way down there to work with volunteers of ours, people who we're partnering with, and just be in Lake Charles after they got slammed. It was 1 or 2 hurricanes. I'm trying to remember the facts. I believe it was almost like a couple of hurricanes had hit that area.
Back to back.
Back to back, I believe. So, man, to see those Amish working so hard, and that's another thing, talking about photographing people, you have to be careful with that too, to make sure that that's okay, because they're not always okay with that.
Sure.
So you have to be mindful of that as well. But yeah, our volunteers are very selfless. And just, you know, our IDES staff do a great job of organizing the volunteers. So, you know, there are times where we will have so many people that we don't have enough spots for volunteers, and then there's, you know, you have an occasional dry spell. So that's why we rely heavily on volunteers. IDES is nothing without volunteers.
Yeah.
So, because we can't do everything. So it's like, we have great guys like, Mason, Paul, and Rich, who are U.S. disaster guys. They're great at organizing, and then our volunteers come in and just do a lot of the dirty work.
Yeah.
And I mean, just the stuff, the areas they're going into, it is like, wow.
Yeah,
It's
that
humbling.
is, to me, like even whenever I was volunteering down in Tennessee, like that was one thing I noticed is just how, just even for the 3 days I was down there, just how
Yeah.
selfless everybody was, but also understanding that the situation is tough and depressing for some, but still doing their utmost effort to just make sure everybody is still just having fun.
Right.
And it's
Right.
all lighthearted. We're able to smile. We're able to laugh.
Yes.
We're all able to just kind of just give each other a hug and just smile and say, hey, it's okay at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I love that.
Right.
I did.
And the cool thing about IDES is that you don't just have to be good with a hammer. Like, we're not looking for like the most experienced, handy people. Like we are. I mean, that's nice, but it's also like, we'll find a job for you to do.
Yeah.
It's cool to see like teenagers go down and like just clean up and just, remove branches or whatever. But the other cool thing is IDES isn't just about U.S. disaster volunteering. You can also volunteer at the IDES office. It's mostly, older folks that come in and do clerical work, just basic office duties. We have a lot of regulars for that. And then also our food packing is huge. So we get a lot of volunteers from churches or organizations that come into the IDES location to do meal packets. And we also, our food packing guys, Jody and Ryan, they will also go to churches with their big trucks and set up food packs at churches. And then, because these food packs can happen in Indiana, or we've gone as far as Oregon with our trucks and had churches pack meals there.
Pack meals there. Wow.
All over. So IDES can go anywhere in the continental United States. We never had an international pack, I don't think.
I would hope it can, because it says international right
Right.
there.
Right.
So I'd hope that it can.
Right. So, but that's the cool thing though, is that the meal packets, they will go internationally. So I'll just do a quick plug for the food packing real quick. But it's called the GAP program. It stands for God Always Provides. And basically, GAP has also exploded in growth. It used to be one person doing it. Now we've got two, Jody and Ryan. And it's getting so big that I'm imagining it will grow into more employees in the future, especially when we get that new warehouse space in our new facility. So it has grown. Ukraine was the big one, that it's now beyond food. It's not just about providing food. Now, we're taking other goods as well, to an extent. We don't take anything and everything. We're not a dumping site for people's, just random stuff.
Yeah.
But like Ukraine, we had gotten like donations of crutches and wheelchairs and bicycles and, you think of also hygiene products, for people going through war-torn situations. Diapers, huge. Formula, so expensive now, but people still need those things even when there's a war going on. So Ukraine was the big disaster that happened that opened the doors for GAP to go beyond just food. So I couldn't tell you how many countries we've done GAP shipments to. You can look in our room at the facility. There's a flag for every country that we've given food to.
I remember seeing all that. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
So it's incredible the growth that food packing program has gone through. And basically, there's these meals. There's 6 meals in one bag of the food packet. and it's got rice, soy, dehydrated vegetables, and a packet of vitamins and minerals for people. And the nice thing about these meal packets is it's very friendly to all cultures.
Yeah.
You know, because just about every culture can utilize rice,
You can
right?
utilize rice, yeah.
So,
And vegetables too, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So basically, it is so cool when I got to go to Haiti and see these meal packets being made by folks there. And these little kids, man, it's incredible. That might be the only meal that they eat the whole day. And we have partnered down there with a group called Hope for Haiti's Children, and other organizations like Demu, Christian Mission, and Jacmel. And it was so amazing to see the meal packets that were packed by people in the States now being dumped into these large cooking pots and feeding these kids. And the cool thing about the cultures is that they will doctor them up because with the spices and the chicken and all that, because I'll just say the meal packets themselves, there's no flavoring in there. It's not very good on its own.
There's no ketchup and mayo.
No,
Yeah,
no. So they need some spice in there and some meat. So but it's cool no matter if you're in Haiti or South America or Africa, Asia, even America. Meal packets have been made after U.S. Disaster. I know in COVID we had distributed some meals as well when there were shutdowns. So yeah, it's amazing, the food packing program and how much it's grown, and we could not do that without volunteers. The people that come into our facility and do meal packs, and then the people at these churches that do the meal packs. Like, it is meeting physical need, but it's also meeting spiritual need. Because that's the thing, when we ship these meals off to people, they are with mission partners that we trust. And that we know that when these meals are in their hands and they are distributing them to people that need it, and that those people, when they feed these people in need, that they are also giving them the gospel as well. So it's cool. Did you have anything to add about volunteers? I know I just did a word launch.
Yeah, you did it.
So, but anything that you've seen in your 11 months of
my short. I think it was Mr. Rogers who said, when you see a disaster, always look for the people who are running to help, because there's a lot of people running to help. And I think in the Western society, it's so easy. The first few days a disaster hits, it's on our mind, and then it's shortly off of it.
It's a weird honeymoon phase for
It
sure.
is. And even like my grandparents, when they knew I went to Tennessee after Helene, and like, are you okay? Like, because they knew I would see a lot of stuff. And I always tell people, I said, no, there's a lot of people who go and help. As devastating as it is to see what has happened, it's also really encouraging, as you have mentioned, how many people go to provide not just a working hand, but to provide a presence. And actions speak louder than words, and it doesn't have to be just slinging a hammer or tarping a roof, but it could be praying with somebody or just being there with a shirt on to say, hey, we're here to help in whatever way we can. People need that comfort and that to kind of ease the mindset of stress in those situations, and to have that presence.
I remember actually whenever I was driving down there with a good buddy, Nate. We were going down there to help, and in the chain of emails that we were receiving before we were going down there to let us know, hey, here's the church, all that sort of stuff. In there was also, here's a little bit of what you'll be doing. Originally, it was tarping roofs and removing tree limbs. Well, apparently y'all kicked so much butt in doing that then the orders changed to, well, now you guys are going to be doing some drywalling. So I was like, yeah, great. And then on the way down there, Nate looked at me and was like, do you know how to drywall? I was like, nope. Do you? He goes, nope. So I pulled up a YouTube video. We watched 30 seconds of this guy just being like, well, this is what you got to do, this. And then Nate and I were just like, cool.
We can do that.
Now we think we can do it. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
No, what I absolutely love, and just a little, I guess, fun fact about volunteer organizations. I didn't realize this, and I know that IDES probably is in this category for sure, is after you see a lot of disasters happen, kind of like what you were saying, Adam, there is a little bit of that honeymoon phase where like we initially see it and we're like, oh my gosh, like this is so bad. But then after like a couple weeks or a month, everybody's kind of moved on, and it's just like, okay, well, what's the next disaster type deal?
Oh yeah.
And that's also from the government as well. Then they just kind of move on.
Yes.
And I've noticed that throughout history of different disasters taking place, Katrina obviously being probably the biggest one. After the government left, after all these different organizations that they had down there leave, the people that remain down there to still help out are all the churches and all the volunteer organizations, 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And that's just a crazy statistic to me.
Oh yeah. And that's one of the reasons IDES exists, is because we are in Indianapolis and we can't just stay in Louisiana forever. We can't just be in Florida forever. And so that's the big thing IDES does, is we go down there to empower the church that's down there. And, we rely on the donations that come in so that we can afford to go down there and help people. And that's the big thing that we do, is that there's some point that our employees are going to have to leave. And that's why going down to Iowa or, these more smaller areas, at Kansas or Oklahoma or something, where that might be a smaller church, but when you go there and the disaster comes through the small town and the pastor is at this congregation of 30 or 50 people is scratching his head about how to help, when they may not have a lot of money or resources to do anything, IDES can come into those communities and really be like, hey, we are here to help you, to help relieve that stress from the senior pastor and the people of the community, so that that pastor can be the shepherd, to his flock, and to kind of take that stress away, of like, because disasters, there's a lot going on. So we've been there, done that so many times, helped so many areas that it's every situation is about the same. It's always the pastor or the elders or whatever in distress, and then after everything is like said and done, weeks, months later, the pastors always say the same thing about, I was ready to pull my hair out or something. It's just, you guys came in and like relieved all this stress. And, and that just speaks to our staff and how experienced they are. Mason and Paul and Rich, they do an amazing job of being that calm, and David, and as well, our director, and Jeff Green, our advancement director. A lot of people can wear different hats in the office sometimes. So it's always great to see that when we leave, that church community is still there in the middle of nowhere, Iowa or Oklahoma, so that they can be the light to those people that have been helped. So it's really IDES promoting those churches. When we go to somebody that just had their whole house knocked out, it's IDES people pushing them to that church. We're not glorifying IDES and be like, yeah, IDES is here to help you. It's, no, this Christian church is here to help you. So that way those people know that it's the church helping them. Because look, IDES, we're pretty cool, but we're not about promoting ourselves at all.
What are you doing here?
I don't know.
I was like, yeah, we're on this podcast.
So,
I always said that.
Because like I said, we're in Indianapolis, and there's going to be a point where we need to go home, and that's what's so cool, is to see the people who have been helped by the church, and then they would just end up attending that church. The really cool thing is when you see churches develop from the disaster. So that's the really cool thing.
Yeah, I think, we always talk about, and IDES is not the only organization that says this. You can go to Convoy of Hope, Samaritan's Purse, Matthew 25, and all those are great organizations. And they all say, hey, we go into a disaster site to love people. And I think an important aspect of that, to love others well, is faithfulness. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts the church can give a community, not just during disaster, but any community, right?
Sure.
And one thing that I've loved about IDES is that we've had other partners say, like, man, after a lot of people left, like, IDES stayed and helped us until we knew that, okay, our work is done. And that might be, months, or, and that one case, it was like a year and a half. Every situation is different, but especially in today's society, oh my goodness, the level of impact that faithfulness has on people changes a lot. And I think to really, really love your neighbor, you have to be faithful, and you have to be faithful to God.
Oh, yeah. No, I think, you see, for me personally, to go down to Tennessee was, I don't know how it may have been for you, or for you, for your first volunteer kind of action, but I just know for me, I had seen the damage from the hurricanes and just the amount of flooding that took place in North Carolina, Tennessee, and we actually, on our way back home, we drove through some parts of very southwest Virginia, where like the tip of Virginia is.
Yeah.
And even through some of those areas were affected as well. And that was just crazy to me as to how far north the whole thing came.
It's amazing.
And I just remember initially just seeing all that and just being like, wow, like that's terrible. And then I think it was the response of our government really that made me just kind of like, I wouldn't necessarily say like led. It was definitely more like I was just angry. I was just angry because I really felt powerless. I felt like, well, why aren't we doing more? We should be doing more. These are our own people, for crying out loud.
Right.
And I just remember praying and being like, I just wish there was something I could do. I just feel powerless. And then I remember texting you saying like, I want to do something to help. Because it was just a moment for me where it's just like, if they're not going to do anything, then it's up to the people to respond and to do something as well.
Right.
So I think a lot of my initial reaction was out of anger, and then kind of channeling that anger to make something positive out of it. So I don't know what that first experience might have been like for you for volunteering, and if it was something that was like you said with Milton, he saw the typhoon in Bangladesh, and he was just like, well, I have to do something, and mine was kind of out of anger. I was just curious as to what maybe yours was. Really?
Yeah. Oh boy. Man, I'll be honest. I could do a much better job of loving people. I'll just be honest. I will be honest.
I think we all probably could.
Yeah.
So you're not alone there.
Right. So for me, it's I am not perfect, and he knows that very much. Like I wish.
I almost spat my drink.
That's okay. That's okay. But it's just like, definitely have, faith in Christ, but we are imperfect people, for sure. And sometimes it's just like, man, like he said, why in the world does God use us? We're so fallen. So, yeah, it is, for me, it's easy to be like, man, I just want to be in my comfort. It's that American thing of like, I just don't want to leave my comfort zone and, and do this.
My couch is comfy.
Yeah, right. And it's just like, but it's also cool. Like my first experience with volunteering, specifically with disaster, was Katrina. I was a senior in high school. 2005, watching Katrina happen live on the news, and it was just like unbelievable. Yeah. And we had decided, so much need. In 2006, our spring break, so my senior year, we had decided that we were going to get a group of people that wanted to use their spring break to go down there to Slidell, Louisiana, because it was so impactful, because we actually had a girl that was from Slidell who came up to Lafayette
Really?
in our high school, because her high school was demolished, or it was so much mold and all of that. So she had to come up with family to Lafayette area. And it's just like, my goodness, like, you're 18, 19, seeing like this person your age have to relocate just to do school.
Restart.
Yeah. And, until it was livable again down there. So it was just like, it was a group of us that we were like, man, we need to do something. And from that, it wasn't a spiritual thing. We weren't, it's a public high school. So, but it was, we went down there because we wanted to help people.
Yeah.
And I had some experience with roofing, and I don't enjoy roofing. But
I don't know anybody that does.
But
I know roofers that don't enjoy roofing.
Right. And I will say this about roofing in Louisiana: even in March, it feels like summer's in the Midwest. So, wow, it was hot. But my dad, very great handyman, we took about, oh my goodness, 30, 40 people, students and teachers.
Just got on like a bus?
We got in a bunch of vans, those big 15-passenger vans, and we slept at some church or something, and it was amazing to see. Even though there wasn't any spiritual thing, it was cool to see all these people come together and be like, you know what, we're going to give up a spring break that we could have done.
We're going to give up 10 days.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And we're going to go do this. And it wasn't even a hesitation. It's like, no, we're going to do this, because Katrina, at least, that was just, man, that was such a devastating hurricane.
Yeah.
And you could just see the need that they still haven't recovered fully from that.
I know. Me
So-
and my brother, we went down there to New Orleans we went down there for WrestleMania.
Okay.
And while we were down there, there are some aspects of the city that are just completely renovated and just brand new.
Yeah.
And then there's other parts of the city, and it's mostly the outskirts, like the outlier parts
Right.
of New Orleans.
Right.
But you can still see some of like where the damage was, and it's almost like scars, really.
Right.
It's
Right.
crazy.
It is. So that was my first experience of volunteering, was
Yeah.
in high school, outside of IDES. And I never knew that years later I'd be working at a disaster relief organization. So that was pretty cool. Very humbling. Then that was my first exposure to destruction like that. Had never seen anything like that. And man, just seeing those giant boats on land, just on top of buildings, like it was insane.
Yeah.
To see that as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old,
Yeah.
it's just like, my goodness. Then we got to go into this high school and walk around. I don't even think we had masks on. We probably should have, because the mold in there was so bad.
Yeah.
And it was just like I had a camera with me. I've been doing photo, video stuff forever. So I was like the big video person back then in high school. So I had the camera and was taking video of all this stuff, and it was just like, man, just walking on dirt in the high school hallways, and it was like watching something from a movie or something, and just imagining my high school if something had happened to it.
Yeah.
So it was pretty sobering. So yeah, that was my first experience of volunteering. How about you?
Yeah.
Yeah, volunteering in general. My first mission trip was to Kentucky. That's not a joke.
Stuff happens in Kentucky.
Stuff does
Yeah.
happen in Kentucky. But I think it's kind of like what BG alluded to. It's the realization of seeing somebody right in front of you that's like, this person is just like me. They're in the situation and I'm not. And, they're the ones that got their house destroyed or they're in poverty for X, Y, and Z. And I think that was hard hitting for me to realize. I think it's, as much as I love technology and, how we can give information to people and share stories and how important that is, there's a screen that blocks us. And there's something about, touching grass and seeing somebody right in front of you. I'm like, wow, this person is just like me, and yet they're going through something like this. And so, there's a level of compassion that kind of gets unlocked that you don't really realize until you're in it.
Until you're actually in it.
Yes.
That was definitely, for me, I'd always been, I don't know, I guess I'd always considered myself a charitable and compassionate person, but actually being there and being with John and hearing his story and just how moving it all was, really.
Yeah.
It unlocks something in your heart there a little bit. And John's now a guy where, I mean, I have his number and I still check in on him every now and again, like, hey,
That's
man,
awesome.
like, how you been?
Yeah. That's awesome.
So it's nice to still have that relationship, and still nice to, even if I never see John again, it's nice to know
Right.
that I will see him again later, if not here.
Yeah.
And that was definitely very.
Yes.
I can't even think of a word right now for it. It was just very much just gratifying.
Yes. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So, I want to dabble into it a little bit.
Okay. Oh,
But
boy.
both of you guys are also filmmakers.
We try.
It's a very
We
good
try
way,
to be
very good way to
filmmakers.
put it.
So I remember working with on Lincoln's
Oh yeah.
project, Dark Side of the Moon, which is not out yet, unfortunately. It's only just doing its festival run.
It hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon.
It should be done with festivals soon.
Soon.
So.
And Gunslinger, how's that looking as well?
Gunslinger is. I would have to ask Lincoln about the specific, because he has the Film Freeway account that has submitted to all that.
Gotcha.
Because it's kind of his baby.
It is.
But Gunslinger has been doing well in festivals.
Oh yeah.
There is something interesting. I feel like Darkside has been doing better than Gunslinger, which is interesting. And Lincoln and I just look at each other perplexed, because it's just like Gunslinger it's longer and more locations.
Yeah.
And Darkside, we did great on Darkside.
Oh, yeah.
But it was filmed all in one day, and it's just interesting to see how Darkside, where we filmed it in one day, and it's this black and white cross genre thing, has been out. I don't want to say outperforming. I hate, to us, it's not about festivals. Festivals is just a way to get exposure and eyeballs and all that.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how much love Darkside is getting, because we made it thinking, this is different. It's horror Western, that's very different. And it's just amazing how much love it's gotten, which is awesome. That speaks to you and Jordan as well.
I think what was just fun about being on that set was just how loose everything was.
Yes.
We all we're having a good time. We
Right.
weren't focused on outperforming Gunslinger.
No. It was, it's interesting.
I want to know about A Tale from Miles a little bit. To kind of share that in a little bit, because you also have a children's book with it, right?
Yeah. So working on Gunslinger and Darkside kind of scratched an itch that I don't normally scratch. I guess put it in that terms, because my bread and butter is documentary work, which I really love.
Okay.
But I had an idea for a short film, and so with these guys' help, I wrote it, and there was a children's book in the film, and I was just going to use a prop. And I thought, well, why don't we actually just write a children's book so it's not just a prop, it's an actual thing itself. Because I thought, that's pictures and a couple words. How hard can it be, you know? And it's very hard. It's very hard.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
It is. It was. Now, I did not draw it. I hired an illustrator, and he was wonderful to work with.
Yeah.
But it was. There's something about being concise in a children's book that is huge. It depends on who you're writing to. But one thing that I did not...
Children.
Right. But one thing that was super interesting that I heard from a children's writer, which makes total sense, I just never thought about before. They said, hey, whatever age range you're writing to, write for the age above them. Because including, especially kids, but even as adults, like nobody likes to be talked down to.
No.
And so if you can write a book to where maybe you're throwing in a little bit language that might be a little bit above them, but it's not so overwhelming, it kind of gives them this sense of like, oh wow, I'm trusted to understand what this book is saying. And it kind of gives them a sense of, I don't know, you know. And so, yeah, those little tidbits and learning how to incorporate that, not just with the book, but also the film, and to tell the story well. But that is all done now as far as like production. Of course, you came to our premiere earlier this year. And so I think here soon, I'm kind of revamping a little bit, or not say revamping, just kind of giving a facelift to my project as a whole. And hopefully we'll release a short film in some form so that people can see it and see the book and yeah, make it available to people. Because right now, like Gunslinger and and Dark Side, it's not anywhere. And so, yeah, just trying to find different avenues for people to see the content.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
I'm excited, man.
Yeah.
I remember watching it at the premiere and just being kind of just shocked and impressed really of just how well that wasn't me. I didn't fart. No, I just remember just being so shocked and impressed with I guess just your attention to detail and your skill that you really put into it. And I remember talking to you about it and how you kind of gave a lot of that credit to Lincoln, really.
Well, he was a huge help. Yeah. It's funny. I am a firm believer, like when you have people like BG and Lincoln and other people on set who, they have their niche of what they're good at in the film world. And I always tried to let creativity breathe, both in the pre-production and production, because I've told BG this, I think, every time we film together. I'm like, hey, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I want. But if we get in the environment and you're like, hey, I think we need to do this, like, please, like, tell me, because I trust your judgment. And you might see something that I don't see, and you bring creativity to the table that I can't bring, and vice versa. And so, and that comes with trust and knowing who you're working with. But I think how well the film turned out is a collaborative effort, and how some of the good stuff is from, an idea from BG or Lincoln, or even in the edit, we're like, hey, take this out and put this in, and this will help amplify the moment more. And so, yeah, it's a beautiful thing when you get to see all the little details come together. And I'm a firm believer, I don't want to waste anything in a film. I don't want any fluff.
Every scene has to have a purpose.
Yeah, and trying to use everything at your disposal, with, what camera angle you use and the colors that you use. I mean, I went down to the dress that Abigail wore, the color was not by accident. And so trying to just add little hints that I want people to walk away from the film and be like, I want to see that again because I see something different. Next time I watch it, or there's that one line that I'm still processing that in my head. And so
creating a sense of replayability to it.
Yeah, trying to strike that balance of, you don't want to be so overwhelming that people are like, what the heck was that,
Yeah.
It's like every Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah.
Right.
I love his movies, but also at the same time, I'm like, you got to watch it again to figure out everything.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
And, there will always be people who do not want to put thought into what they just watched.
Yeah.
And it's just life, Yeah. But there are going to be some people who are like, you want to give them that opportunity to be like, ooh, there's something here that I want to kind of dig in more and give them an opportunity to do that.
You talk about niches on a film set, and I have come to find out about me. people either love it or they hate it. But as an actor, whenever I'm on a set and I'm talking with the director, going over the scene, and there's just continuity going through my head the whole time of just like, okay, so in this scene, I'm walking through the door. Yeah. But in the shot we just did, I was running, so shouldn't I like burst through the door? Yeah, actually, I think that's a good idea. Yeah. So people either love it or they hate it,
Right.
Because there's people that are married to their ideas, and they're like, "Well, no, do what I told you to do."
Right.
And I'm just gonna, be a good little soldier. You told me to do it.
Right.
But
Right.
no, that's kind of what I found out has been my niche. Is I'm the annoying actor that will always bring up continuity to my director and be like, well, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
We need to adjust this singing.
I love that.
Yeah.
Man.
I think I have to learn to be direct. I am not always the most direct person in life, because I tend to be a people pleaser, and I have to be careful of that. But it was so funny because on the set, we laugh about this, but Abigail plays, at the party scene in the film, the lady in red, which is like, she's, like the danger, so to speak. And so she comes and tries to, I think in the script I had, like, she comes to seduce Jordan onto the dance floor, and to pull him away from what he's actually supposed to be doing. And the first time she did it, I did not give her good direction, so it was on me. The first time she did it, she was just very smiley, like, hey, let's dance. I'm like, this is not what I was looking for.
Right.
And like, we had extras on set, and a lot of them were like family, friends, and whatnot. And I looked at Abigail. I'm like, Abigail, like, I need you to seduce him, and the way it came across was like, but like, that's the language. Like, hey, that helps me give a mindset of the kind of tone that I need to present this line. And it's like, I don't want you to actually do it, but it's like giving them the kind of.
I want you to act.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
But it was so weird for me to like jump into that role with like my family around. Like, hey, that's not the kind of film we're making,
Yeah.
But
I'm married, it's all right.
yeah. But to be a little bit more direct and communicative with them, I had to learn a lot, in that role, because that's what they want. Like the actors, as you know, want to give the best performance and to do the story well, and so communicating is a big part of that.
Yeah, I've always found myself being. I agree that actors should get along with all the other actors. It's important for your cast to have chemistry, but
Yes.
I've always found myself being the crew actor.
Oh.
Like, I always want to go like to the sound guy and be like, "What's up, dude?"
Yes. They appreciate
Because
that.
what I've actually found out from experience is, if I go to my other actress and be like, "Hey, was that scene okay? Like, how did you feel with it?" "Oh yeah, I felt good." But if I go to like the focus puller, because I actually remember I had a focus puller actually like pull me aside and be like, "No, do something else with that one." Like,
That's
okay,
right.
Yeah.
That's
So,
good. Hey,
Yeah.
honesty is good.
It
Yeah,
is.
I love it.
Yes.
Yep.
No,
Yes.
so let's go ahead and wrap things up, though, gentlemen.
Okay.
So if you guys don't mind, just real quick, sharing where people can find IDES and where they can donate. And then if there's people who are looking to start up a fund, what requirements they may need to be a fund that can you guys can work through.
Yeah, the biggest way to donate is through IDES.org/donate. IDES.org/donate. Or you can just go to IDES.org and you'll see the big donate button on the right-hand side. And then you can also choose the designation that you want that to go to. For volunteering, you just go to IDES.org and there's volunteering opportunities. Or if you just want more information in general. So, and again, that doesn't have to be a disaster site. That could be, hey, you're in the Indy area and you just want to come into the office and mow our grass, or like we have volunteers. We got a guy that Maserati Marv that comes over.
Yes.
We call him, and
He's incredible.
he mows our grass every Tuesday, or just you want to come over and fix our AC or something.
Sure.
Our HVAC, stuff like that. paint our parking lot lines, stuff like that. So
Yeah, I think we got like a new batch of T-shirts in last week, and our receptionist like, yeah, we got volunteers coming in next week to sort it. And it sounds like little, but it's like when you have a quantity of a lot of T-shirts, you know, it's nice to have people to, you know, it's little stuff that, you know, volunteers can take care of that just helps the well-oiled machine continue on. So.
Yeah. And where can people find you, BG, on social medias?
Ooh, boy. I don't know if you want to.
If you want to share it.
Well, my website is just BGMOORE, bgmore.com. It's really nothing special on there. Just trying to promote cinematography work, get more clients. Yes. And I do a lot of like commercial stuff. I do just about everything.
He does. Well, not anything.
To an extent, of course.
Not anything, but he does
anything,
not
but
anything.
I'd love to do more narrative work, for sure. And yeah, I am on Instagram. What am I now? I always change my username.
See, that's why you can't do that.
That's right.
Now when people watch this, it's going to be outdated because you've changed it.
That's true. That's true. But I'm on there somewhere. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Adam?
Yeah, so my baby, the Relational Project, which is what we did the film through, and all my doc episodes, which we just did a filming yesterday for it. Yeah, the Relational Project, you know, on social media, and then like BG, I'm not on Facebook. Well, I'm on Facebook because I run it for work, and so you have to have an account. So I have like just a dummy account that I can run off of, but I don't use it. And so even if you search my name, you won't find it because it's not even. I just use like my first and middle name. I didn't even use my last name. But Instagram is what I tend to use more for my Relational Project stuff to post through. So.
Gotcha. And I guess just in closing for IDES, what is something that you guys are currently working on now? Like, what is the big passion that you guys are working on now, and where you guys need the most help, so anybody watching or listening knows where to put a lot of time and effort to?
Is this for IDES or is this in general?
I guess just in general, but mostly for IDES, since you guys are
Mostly
here.
for IDES. Well, we are the big thing going on now is our building campaign. So our building campaign is essentially going to double our office space and our warehouse space. And, you know, it's going to take some money to, you know, build this, as we all know. And that is the big thing that we've been working on with promoting is trying to see if people, what the Lord would say in their hearts to give, whether it's a one-time donation or a pledge for, I think it's a couple of years or a few years, pledge, because, yeah, for us, this building campaign is not to have a big fancy office and, you know, double our warehouse space for the heck of it. It's mostly because the need in the world exists so much. There's so much need that we want to be able to have the opportunity to grow even more so that we can help more people, so that the gospel can advance to more areas, whether that's through food packing or through disaster response. You know, all of our focus areas can grow even more. So, you know, it's not just about the numbers. For us, we're not a numbers people. We're basically a spiritual impact. How are people actually being impacted spiritually? So as we can grow bigger facilities, that just means we can, you know, help to feed more people, which then also gives them that spiritual nourishment as well. So yeah, they can find more about that probably on our website here.
Yeah, I think eventually. I know I don't understand all of the even though I'm like in the marketing position at IDES, like the building campaign has been like, I think it's like they call it like a silent phase type of thing. Like it's not to the public yet, I don't think. I don't know how it all works, but I think probably here in in the new year or sometime.
Yeah,
it'll
coming
be
soon.
Yeah, it'll be more like in prominent and advertising for it. So
Gotcha.
Yes. So that's the big thing we've been working on, but also, as you've seen, the effects of hurricanes Helene and Milton, still so much need there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being on the show today. I enjoyed having this
Yes,
conversation, and
absolutely.
it's been very fruitful for me spiritually as well. So
Good.
hopefully, all three of us can walk away proud and a little bit more invigorated with the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Thank you for having
Yeah,
us.
thank you. Thank you.
if you like today's episode, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. See you next time.